In 1940, Denis Robinson was a Spitfire pilot, a member of 152 Squadron, based at Warmwell near Dorchester. Now 92 and living in Winchester, he has clear memories of the summer when the RAF's pilots faced the daily onslaught of Hitler's Luftwaffe over the skies of southern England. On one remarkable day, August the 8th, 1940, he shot down a Stuka dive bomber in the morning and got shot down himself in the afternoon. This is his story, which begins in the late 1930s, when the threat of war began to build up across Europe, and Denis decided to join the RAF.
Well, I joined the RAF because I had an uncle and a father who were both in the Royal Flying Corps in the First World War. And of course I grew up with all the names like Mickey Mannock and various other famous names. And I just wanted to fly, I just wanted to be a pilot. To begin with, of course, I did it in spare time. I was working in the city, William Corey at the time. And it was only because I enjoyed it so much that then the Air Marshal's Flying School wanted flying instructors, and they said if you come and fly our airplanes all week when the airplanes are not being used, if you get your hours up and get you a special Central Flying School instructor's course, that was a gift.
Can you remember what aeroplanes you flew to start with?
Yes, well, I did my first solo, which is in the book here, on a Tug-of-War. Then I flew all the Hart variants, you know, the Hawker Harts, the Hawker Hordacks. I think eventually we even got things like Battles. I flew that, and I flew I can't remember all the types. There's a number of types with the Marshal's Flying School, which at this time was at Cambridge. Actually, there were a number of other young men about my age who were doing the same thing.
When you were going through that process, when you were learning to fly, when you were doing the instruction at Marshall's and all those sorts of things, I mean, were you aware that war was on the horizon?
Oh yes, very much so. I'm afraid that I wasn't a brilliant pilot. The reason I got on Spitfires is extraordinary. I mean, you know, we were rather daredevils at the time. And we had some girlfriends, I think, down at somewhere on the coast, not far away, holidaying. And we thought we'd go down and shoot the beach up. Two of us, so we had pupils in the front seats, of course. And so we did. And unfortunately, our number was taken, and this was reported back. And I think only because war was declared, I would have been dismissed from the Air Force. But then, this really led to me going on to Spitfires, actually, because I didn't stay at the Marshal's Flying School like a lot of my colleagues. I was taken into the Air Force Central Flying School and became a proper sergeant pilot. Much too young, 20 years old or 22 years old. Yeah. Much too young to carry it off.
And can you remember that first Spitfire experience?
Yes, I thought it was a wonderful airplane straight away. But then I'd done 800 or more, 900 hours flying because of all the amount of flying I'd done instructional, which was quite a lot of flying in those days.
Could you see what all the fuss was about? Could you see why so many people thought it was, you know, the best they'd ever had?
Yes, I think I did. Yeah. I mean, I was very honoured to be... I mean, I couldn't think why I was on it because I was nothing but a naughty boy. And it was a great privilege to fly the aeroplane and to be in this 152 Squadron, because I was very much above my pecking order, really. I mean, I wasn't the right material for one, as thought of in those days. It's very hard to do, to be that age amongst these more mature people in the squadron.
Do you remember the first operational flight? Not really.
It was very ordinary, I should think. Probably climbing to a very high level to intercept the German aircraft that came over, reconnaissance aircraft taking photographs, and which we very rarely intercepted one of those. I didn't do many of those. I did about 40 X-ray patrols, which were operational flights. Yeah. We did a lot of interceptions because radar was so good. And it was very good for us because they vectored us right onto it. You know, they would say the enemy's such and such a bearing, and you'd look and there it was. Then, of course, you depended on your squadron leader or your flight leader positioning you because you were in formation.
Do you remember the first dogfight that you got involved in, the first time you fired your guns?
Yes. I actually, quite early in the battle, shot down 2 Messerschmitt 109s. And the second one, I got very close before I opened fire. And it started to smoke almost immediately. Actually, I stopped firing. I say to myself, it's conserve ammunition, because we only had 12 seconds of ammunition, if you remember. But in actual fact, I think I just didn't want to kill him. But then, of course, I had to fly up alongside this 109, and I could see the pilot struggling to control his aeroplane. Sadly, he didn't manage it, and he crashed. I circled the wreckage and see no sign of a survivor. But I flew back to base with some very mixed feelings about what you might call the killing. It was the first one I really saw, you know. You often didn't see a lot of detail. So, but it did, for me, it was very difficult to manage.
But in a way, in those situations, in the dogfights, you knew that if you didn't get him, he might get you.
Yes. I suppose I did. You didn't really get too much dogfight situation. It was all positioning. And I didn't get in that position. Some people got to where they did these very steep turns and had somebody on their tail. I was pretty lucky on that. I was always finding getting myself in. But in this position, I was privileged to fly. I did have an opportunity to position myself, which many people flying in Squadron pattern didn't have the same opportunity.
August the 8th, 1940, is a day Denis Robinson will never forget. The day his flying skills saved his life. It was the day mass squadrons of Stuka dive bombers attacked a British convoy of ships heading west up the Channel towards Weymouth. Denis was amongst those sent up to beat off the attack.
When you talk about all this dogfighting, this particular occasion was, we arrived when the Stukas were diving, actually diving on the attack. A lot of them. I don't know how many, but certainly 30 plus. And I was able to position myself on one Stuka which was just pulling out, which meant that the rear gunner couldn't hit me, and I could get an excellent shot at it and shot him down. I wasn't particularly proud of it. It was just too easy. It's a funny thing to say, but it was.
But did you feel as though it was your role to get the Stukas so they couldn't bomb the ships?
Oh, yes, of course. It's much more our role, because we knew, I think we knew then the Battle of Britain was critical. I mean, when the Battle of Britain first started, I think it was around about this time, actually, and Churchill said something like, I think we were briefed from ahead, you know, it's up to you now, the RAF. So individually we got talked to that way. It's up to you. We really knew that if we didn't do our job, that everything depended on it. There was a lot of course we were also in full view of the public. So I think the responsibility was there, all right.
But did you feel as though it was always going to be difficult simply because of the number of German aircraft that were coming over?
Yes, well, the first time I saw approaching us 100 plus German aeroplanes, I just thought, well, this is it, I'm not going to make this one. And I was surprised that we were able to get in amongst, there were so few of us that they couldn't see us. You know, they wouldn't be seeing Spitfires, I don't. And we were able to attack, not exactly unmolested, but we didn't have a mass of aeroplanes, because they just, you know, Spitfires are lost amongst the numbers. And you were very quickly separated from your squadron. And you just had to work on your own.
At around lunchtime, Denis was back at RAF Warmwell to refuel and rearm. Then he took off again, as large numbers of Spitfires and Hurricanes were sent into action to respond to another attack on the convoy of ships in the Channel. As he flew back to base, he was attacked by a Messerschmitt 109 south of Swanage.
I was shot down in a very tight formation with the leader, just 3 of us, on the right-hand side of the leader. And the first thing I saw was a tracer coming out in front of my airplane. You know, I was amazed. And I quickly realised over my left shoulder it was coming from that direction. I couldn't see from where. Now, I couldn't turn left, which you had to do. If you don't turn left, if you turn that way, he could quickly keep his sights on you. I knew what to do. Turn left. I couldn't turn left because I'm on the right-hand side of the leader. So I thought, there's only one other. This is quick thinking. Push the control column forward. I did that with quite a bit of force. And the Spitfire literally just stood on its nose like that. And great clouds of black smoke came out of the exhaust pipe because we didn't have a pressure-fed fuel system. And I just went down vertically. And then, of course, it's a time when your airspeed indicator really does begin to go off the clock. And so you're getting into what I call compressibility, the speed of sound, if you like, where your airplane is not a supersonic design airplane. So you have a lot of trouble trying to get the thing out of a dive, which I did manage to do. And then, of course, the engine stopped. So I literally had to think had plenty of altitude and time to think. And that's the time when you decide whether you're going to use your parachute or not. And I thought, well, I better go through the drill. And I remember, realising I must release my helmet, everything must be free, undo my lap strap, slide back the canopy, and roll over upside down and fall out. And I thought to myself, my God, you could be hit by the tailplane. The parachute might not open. And then I said to myself, it's bloody dangerous. And I didn't do it. But you were instructed to actually abandon, and of course you had to point your aircraft out to sea, so that you didn't land on, you hoped to land on a village or something. So then I was stuck with having to fly it. And of course, all my instructional flying came back. I'd done umpteen forced landings with pupils and myself. So it was very easy for me I saw this field near Wareham, which is actually rather, on the side of Wareham there's an area which is quite swampy, and a lot of sticks. Didn't look like that to me from above. And I did do a very good landing. I was very pleased with it. Feeling very pleased with myself. When the canopy crashed up with tremendous force, the cockpit filled with dust and dirt. I was completely blinded, and I could feel the Spitfire doing some pretty odd manoeuvres. And by the time it all stopped, I just thought, oh God, I hope I can open this canopy, because, you were sitting on a fuel tank under your bottom, and on over your lap, high octane fuel. And there was a lot of smell of fuel by that time. But the canopy opened very easily, and I was able to jump free. Even then I was fighting my parachute. I hadn't released my lap straps or anything. By that time I think my thought processes were really breaking down.
What was the reception like from the local people?
They were wonderful. They came out, and this was near Wareham. You could walk in from there. It was a walking area, actually. And they walked me into Wareham. Gradually built up in numbers to a nearby pub, because the pub seemed a nice place to get to a telephone. Yeah. Anyway, that's what they did. They took me in. And the landlord was wonderful. He gave me, whiskies and all sorts of things. And I rang the squadron, and they said, well, wait there. Your colleague on the other side of you was also shot down. Now that's what brought me to this formation stuff. My colleague on the left, who both shot down, because all we were doing is sitting in here, and the only chap keeping a lookout was our leader. And I got a bit shirty after that about things, quite naturally.
Did you feel like the luckiest man alive?
I did. I think, yes, I was pretty lucky, yeah. I really didn't think I was going to make it. 40 ops is a long time, from June till September. I wasn't sorry to be taken off in September when I was sent to Central Flying School.
But after you were shot down, you were back on operational flying straight away?
Yes, straight away. I think only just long enough to get another parachute and helmet, because I left them behind on it. Yes, so I had about a couple of days, I think, just to get re-equipped. Oh yes, went straight back. They were so short of pilots, terribly short of pilots.
And when you went back, you'd been shot down, one of your colleagues in the same squadron had been shot down. Did you feel as though the pressure was really building on the frontline fighter squadrons?
Yes, losing colleagues was quite difficult to manage, because you obviously got to know some people more than others, and I got to know a man called Ackroyd quite well. He was much more senior to me. He was a flight sergeant pilot, and I got quite friendly with him, but he was shot down after me, and at a later date, sometime in September. And I went to see him in hospital, and he was very badly burnt, and that was a silly thing to do. I found it very unnerving indeed. I think he died a few days later.
Did you tell your mum you'd been shot down?
I don't think so, no. I think the only recollection I have of my mother and father, my mum in particular, is that one particular day they came down to see me at the squadron. We were based at Warmwell. They wanted to take me out to lunch. Of course they couldn't because I was on readiness. But we came off very late in the evening, and I had to do an ops while they were there. So they were hanging around around the squadron area whilst I was flying. So, and then the airfield was actually bombed, and I couldn't help. They were being attacked, and I was sitting up there looking down on it all.
Yes. Attention, all personnel. This airfield is under immediate attack.
So your parents were actually at Warmwell?
They just came down for a day.
And it was attacked while they were there?
Warmwell was attacked. Yeah. I don't think they were actually at the airfield. They were able to. They also had to wait all day because I only saw them in the evening. But my father said, "Your mother was on her knees. Pray for me." So rather shook me. That's all Mother knew about it. But then, of course, she'd experienced the loss of her brother-in-law, Felix, in an air crash at Henley. So they were pretty oriented on, my father had been a pilot and all, so they were pretty oriented on what I was doing.
We often see the images of pilots in the dispersal areas, waiting to be sent off.
Yes, that was the worst time, really. They're hanging around waiting. Every time the phone rang, because all you got was a telephone, and then you got B flight scramble or red section scramble or squadron scramble. Just like that. Then you had to be in the air with a limited time. So it was just get into your airplane, your parachute was in a seat, or mine was, that's why I worked it. Get into your airplane and get airborne. Doing it all up, all your parachute straps and your shuttle harness, as it was called then, and heading into the air and then getting into position.
German fighters waited overhead for the defending planes of the Royal Air Force, the RAF, to appear. They didn't have long to wait.
That was all right. The activity wasn't too bad, but just the bit when the phone bell rang and then say tee up or something like that was a great relief.
And were you aware at that stage of how the battle was going?
I don't think we were really.
I mean, were you expecting...
We knew that by about the 15th of August was a big day, and the 18th of August, because I think I did 4 ops on that day.
So you wouldn't have been surprised if you'd seen German paratroopers coming down on Warmwell Airfield?
Well, we knew a bit about it. I think I'd have been surprised, yeah.
But it was that, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, at this distance to actually know just how close the Germans were to getting in their barges and coming across the channel.
I think they were a long way from it, actually.
Really?
But I don't think we were worried about that so much. I think we were just worried about losing the battle. We realised that everything depended on it.
In the first 10 days of the Battle of Britain, Goering launched 26 major attacks to get command of the air and lost 697 aircraft. The British lost 153, and 60 British pilots bailed out.
I think it was very hard to do towards the end. I think it's one of those things that builds up on you. There's such a lot of waiting, perhaps, and also over the days and the months. It's such a daily thing, isn't it? I mean, we're on readiness from dawn to an hour after dusk. That's a long day. You don't get much break.
Do you feel immense pride at your role during the Battle of Britain?
Yes, I do. I feel immense pride because of the loss of my colleagues. There's no doubt that a lot of people I knew didn't survive. And I think I found the killing the hardest thing to manage. I don't think I was brought up by loving parents, I had a very good childhood, and I think that sort of person is not really geared for killing. And that really was very hard to manage. The loss of my colleagues. And we never knew what happened to them, of course. That was one of the worst things. You just come back and other people wouldn't come back.
Was there also a certain trepidation about the big battles that took place off the coast, given the fact that if you were shot down over the sea, your chances of survival were so much less?
Yes. Well, one or two colleagues had quite nasty experiences. I said the only crash landing I did was this forced landing, which ended up as a crash landing, of course. I was very lucky, wasn't I? I was actually very fortunate in having a lot of flying experience. I mean, I could do anything with a Spitfire. I was fully aerobatic. I knew exactly where I was in any position, because I'd done this training, sitting behind pupils, doing loops and rolls and training. And now you just sit there and you learn to know where you are. Well, for many people who didn't have that kind of experience, once you got into an upside down position, and of course knowing what to do with your controls, using even in a Spitfire to do aerobatics, you needed to know what you were doing. So I'm trying to think how many aeroplanes I shot down. I think I shot down 5 or 6. I certainly shot down 2. 109s I'm telling you about, the Messerschmitt 109, the single engine fighter. I shot down an 80s Stuka. I also shot down a Ju-88. It was the last aeroplane I shot down, which I think was a reconnaissance aeroplane.
And was the pressure of repetitive flying so great that sort of one operation tended to merge into another?
Yes. I mean, I could isolate it by remembering attacking Heinkel 111s, the twin-engine bomber, in which there was a rear gunner. And I can remember opening fire on that, because you got quite a lot of return fire on that from their squadron formation, and he was in this rear cockpit firing his guns. I mean, I just, the target, I wasn't aiming, the target I hit, to put it that way, was him. And he just shot out of the aeroplane into space. And that really, that sort of thing stayed with you a bit, you thought. It was too visual, because most of the time it wasn't very visual. You just see the aeroplane damaged.
Did you get much chance when you were at Warmwell to actually just have a day off or an evening off and go out and relax? Was it ever a day like that?
Well, I'm afraid that after we went into Bournemouth and did the nightclub there, after he finished readiness, I think it'd be 10:30 and 11 at night, he used to stay open for us. I went in, yes, I would go in and have a drink or two. But there wasn't much time left, really. I mean, we were up half the night. I don't know when I got to bed, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and on readiness again at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 or 7 in the morning, an hour before night ready, sometimes even before then, in the summer.
So you knew all the nightclubs of Bournemouth?
I think we did, yes. I can't remember them now. I can't. It's gone on. All that stuff was... it wasn't cemented enough as how awful the rest of it was. I think it was a pretty awful experience. Looking back on it, I mean, at the time I was 22 years old, I was invincible. Fortunately, you felt that. And thankfully, I didn't know that under my seat was a great big fuel tank, and just over my lap was another one. I didn't know they were there. I should have done, but I was going to sleep. I never even thought about it.
In September 1940, the demand for experienced instructors with operational experience was so great that Denis was sent to work at a flying school. After the war, he had a long career as an airline pilot. Denis's father had fought with the Royal Flying Corps in the First World War. He fought in the Battle of Britain. His son later became a Concorde pilot. And his passion for flying shows no signs of diminishing.
If you ever had the opportunity, would you like just to get back into a Spitfire?
Oh, we'd love to. I've often thought when they do these memorial flights, what a lovely thing it would do to put a Battle of Britain pilot back into it and fly it. Because my first experience with the Spitfire was this just showed me how everything worked, and you just got in and flew it. And it's so easy to fly. But now, later on, they had a dual Spitfire, if you remember. But, I mean, I could have some practice with a dual Spitfire before I flew it. And I'd like to fly it, not me, but I'd like a Battle of Britain pilot to fly it, that memorial flight that we still get now, because the Spitfire's very old. I mean, it's nurtured along there at the memorial flight.
Do you think it would all come back to you very quickly?
Oh, it's very interesting. There's nothing to remember, really. I suppose I can almost remember it now. Flap control here somewhere, and petrol cocks here, and straightforward controls.
Yeah.
Stick and rut. I could fly it now easily, I'm sure.
Denis Robinson is one of just a handful of Battle of Britain pilots who are still alive to tell the story of that momentous summer. He really is one of the last of the few.